What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Got a new TV set up so we get some visuals in these damn videos now, and today we're going to be reviewing Jigsaw. So without further ado, let's get started.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not locked in here with you.
You're locked in here with me!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Knights of Horror, and today on the channel we're talking the Jigsaw movie. Now, the Jigsaw is the 8th film in the Saw franchise, and I have to say it was actually pretty good, you know? I was walking in there not really expecting too much out of the Saw franchise because I already know how the Saw franchise is. It's really gory, and, you know, the traps are very, they're very well put together and stuff, so walking into this movie I kind of was expecting something like that, but walking out, I got a new perspective over the entire Saw franchise as a whole. So today we're going to be talking about the movie in general and what my honest review about it was, and yeah. By the way, two things before this video officially gets more into depth of the Jigsaw movie. One, spoiler alert, it's on the screen, always is for these movie reviews. If you haven't seen Jigsaw yet, pause this video, go watch the movie. Or the other movies if you haven't even seen them, or if you just don't feel like watching the movies just to watch this movie. I have a video on the history of the Jigsaw Killer, so in the description below I leave a link to the Jigsaw Killer history of video. Go check that out if you want to just watch that and then go see Jigsaw. Other than that, in the very beginning of the movie we see a guy running who has this like kind of like detonator of some sort. They don't know what it is for, but he has it. And it's to start the Jigsaw games, but he wants to talk to one of the police officers who at one point you think is the killer. So they ended up shooting at him, but it turns out they were just trying to shoot at his detonator, and then they ended up actually killing the guy, who later find out that it wasn't the police who killed the guy. But we'll get to that later on in the video. Get started. So Jigsaw, it was just awesome, you know. I mean, we got to see, it was a pre-sequel. When I say pre-sequel, we got to see a game that happened 10 years before the actual events of Saw, but at the same time it was another game that was happening live. So we find out that you know, there's 5 people that are doing Jigsaw's game, and they are in this barn area. So the first trap we see is the trap that they've been showing a lot in the promotion of this movie, which was the buckets with the saws going through their face. We see that a lot in this movie, and it leads up to the start of the Jigsaw game. So then, you know, we go back and forth between the Jigsaw games, the autopsy doctors, and everything. So we find out there's 2 main characters. There's a guy and this chick, autopsy doctors, and they're piecing together the Jigsaw killings. You see that a lot of Jigsaw leaves a Jigsaw in their skin of some sort, meaning that he was killed by the Jigsaw Killer. So we find out that as the movie progresses, they start uncovering more clues about who could be the Jigsaw Killer, because the Jigsaw Killer has been dead now for quite some time now. And they're trying to just figure out who's doing the new game. So then we go on to the next room with the victims who are part of Jigsaw's game. And that room is a room where they're still attached to the chain, but the bucket is off now. And the chain now will hang them, and they have to get these, like, they have these 3 needles. And so the needles will be, one of the victims did something, and one of the codes is on the needles of what she did. And so they got to pick the right needle. If they don't pick the right needle, she'll die a fatal death, which is acid in her bloodstream, or she has the cure to whatever was inside of her. We end up finding out that this first victim shoplifted, or killed this woman over a couple of dollars, and we find out that this woman had an asthma attack. So we see that piecing together all these victims are not who they say they are. They've all done something bad. Then after that, they end up killing that girl who robbed the lady and killed the girl who had the asthma attack. And then they end up going to the next room. Well, the next room says has a door locked, and it says no easy way out or not an exit or something like that. But they end up trying to break open that door anyway. Well, one of the guys who tries to break up the door is actually one of the assholes of the film. His leg ends up falling in between the wooden planks and into a wire trap where it twists his leg super tight, where it pretty much can chop it off. Well, as that's going on, the other two victims go into this kind of like a water tower kind of thing, and the door closes on them, and they get the tape, and the TV turns on and tells them what they have to do, what has to happen. So the guy who has his leg trapped in has to pull this lever to let him free. At the same time that's going on, a bunch of sand falls into them, kind of almost burying them alive. And as that's going on, items from the chute are falling out. We're talking like saw blades, pitchforks, a bunch of different sharp items that can possibly kill them. But eventually he ends up pulling the thing. The guy's leg ends up getting snapped off, and they get free, rigging it to the next trap. But then as we go back to the autopsy people, we found out that the lady who helps the guy with the autopsy, she's a huge Jigsaw fan. So we see that Jigsaw has all these infamous traps in her museum that she's trying to start up. Find out that Jigsaw has one trap that he used 10 years before he actually ever started the game. It was the very first Jigsaw trap he ever built. And then we find out that you think she's the actual Jigsaw killer, but she's really not. We then go back to the Jigsaw trap room. So we then find out it's the first trap that Jigsaw ever created, and we find this out because as the girl was telling us earlier, that Jigsaw did a game way before the first Saw movie. So in this trap, one of the guys goes up to a motorcycle, and his sin was he sold a motorcycle to Jigsaw's nephew, who he didn't inform that the brakes were fucked up, and his nephew ended up getting killed. So then he goes into this trap where he has to go down the twisty thingy that's going like super fast. He's got to reach for something, but as he goes down, he actually is getting chopped up into bits. So then we find out the girl tries to find a strategy to stop it. She almost stops the motorcycle thing from spinning, but the thing she puts in it, it's like a crowbar kind of thing, just kind of snaps off. And what ends up happening is the guy falls in it, and he ends up getting twisted to death. Then we find out that they finally get out of the area that they are at, but Jigsaw is waiting for them. So Jigsaw injects one of them with the saw in his infamous pig mask, and he ends up bringing them both back to this room. We do see him working on a trap of some sort. I don't know if it was for the games with those guys, but it's a trap of some sort. But then he ends up loading a shotgun with 2 shells. The 2 victims left are the guy with no leg and the one chick. She's one of the main chicks of the whole movie. And then you end up seeing that Jigsaw gives this loaded shotgun. It has 2 different color shells in them. Well, if you really pay attention, the shells match the 2 colors of the locks on the people. So you find out that those shells actually had the keys to let him go. And he basically gave them the answer like the simplest games are. All you gotta do is, your key to freedom is right here. And he literally tells them that there's a key in these bullet shells, but they don't really understand. So the girl picks up the shotgun and is about to shoot the other guy, but then the shotgun backfires on her and ends up killing her, shoots her face is like all fucked up and everything. And that's when the guy with no leg notices that the keys were inside the shotgun shells the entire time, and they kind of are fucked from there. And then that brings us back to the very last game. We see that the detective throughout the whole movie, who you think is a Jigsaw killer, but it's really not. He's trapped into one of these laser traps. And then you see that the autopsy guy is also trapped in one of the laser traps. So you're kind of figuring out like what the hell is going on. What is this? What is the point of this and all that? So then you find out that they have to confess what they know. They have to confess their biggest sins. So then they could finally confess. The autopsy guy confesses, but then the laser trap goes on him, and he goes and he just there's blood everywhere and stuff. And then it goes to the next guy. But what happens is the autopsy guy gets up. He kind of faked his death. You find out he's the new Jigsaw killer. Well, now this goes back to John Kramer. We did see John Kramer in the room with the shotgun shells, and you're kind of wondering how the hell is John Kramer still alive? He died in Saw 4 or 5, and we're wondering why he's still alive, how he's still alive. So then it goes back to a story where in the very beginning we do see the people in the Saw room with the buckets on their head and everything. Well, one of the guys actually starts to bleed out because he was unconscious, and so John Kramer immediately realizes that his mistake on that guy, he had a mistake to bring that guy into the game, automatically forgives him and brings him back to his warehouse, where he ends up becoming John Kramer's first apprentice for the Jigsaw killings. You find out that the whole game that you see throughout the whole movie was Jigsaw's very first game, and that it all happened like 10 or 15 years ago. So he uncovers the bodies of the last 2 victims, and they're all kind of just rotten. They've been rotten there. Throughout the whole movie, they're saying that the first 2 victims were never found or anything, so that's why they think that the first Jigsaw thing never really happened, because they never found any bodies. But then you find out that they've been just sitting in that barn for years, and no one ever really found them. And then we find out that the autopsy guy was behind everything the entire time. He shot the guy in the beginning who had the detonator, who was looking for the detective. He reenacted the same exact game, only with different people. We find that out later on. And then he took the bodies of each people and put them where they needed to be. And when I say this is a pre-sequel, I mean that we pretty much see the prequel of how Jigsaw got started, and we see the sequel of how his work's getting carried on. All in all, guys, I thought this movie was really good. It was the 8th installment of the Saw franchise, and I can't lie, this was actually a really good movie. My rating out of 5, I'm going to give it a 4.0 out of 5. Very good movie, very solid. They could have worked a little bit more on the effects, but I don't blame them. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching this Jigsaw review. If you guys haven't seen it yet, go down in the link in the description. I got the history of Jigsaw video out right now. I did the entire history. If you don't feel like watching all the Saw movies and you want to get right to it, just watch my video. It sums everything up pretty much. And then, yeah, go check out Jigsaw. It's in theaters now. I really highly recommend this movie. It's a really good movie. Critics-wise, it didn't get really good reviews, but all the fans loved it, and I thought it was awesome. So thanks, guys, for watching, and I will see you in the next video.